Hey there, Internet. Welcome to the Hard On Gear channel, where I discuss and review my used and abused knives and gear. Okay, today I'm going to be narrowing down my top 5 most used knives of 2022 up to this point of early July. So I spent the entirety of 2022, the last 6 months, stuck on a military base with limited access to my knives. So what you're seeing here is probably about a third of my collection. If you want to see everything I've got and some of the different collection videos, there's a whole playlist with the different collection videos stacked up in there. Feel free to check those up and come back here or queue those up for later. But for now, we're just going to be narrowing down 5 that I've used the most these past 6 months. And the knives that I have here are the ones that I've decided to bring with me or had shipped to me or purchased since I've been stuck on base. So if you know nothing about me or this channel, the knives I'll be picking for this video are based on my own personal experience, not the knives that I like the most, but the knives that I found myself using the most. And I spent the last 10 years prior to joining the military working in the forestry, wildfire, wildlife world. So I've used knives for all kinds of weird things, dissecting all kinds of dead critters, looking for bone marrow and different organs and stuff, and then doing all kinds of ridiculous stuff with knives in my own free time, and then in forestry, being in the setting to do all kinds of fun stuff with knives and throwing all kinds of knives that aren't supposed to be thrown and stuff like that. And then wildfire, I've got to travel across most of Canada doing different stuff, pretty much pushing my knives to their limits in all kinds of different environments and weather conditions, doing tons of stuff, again, that you shouldn't be doing with knives. All that being said, that's where I'm coming at with the choices that you're going to see. So they're going to be a little bit different from what you might choose. So if there's knives on the table that you would be using a lot more than the ones I pick here, feel free to comment below and let me know what you think would be your most used knives out of what I've got here, as well as what you find yourself using the most out of what you carry. Okay, so to break the ice, the first knife is going to be, no surprise to anybody, so we'll just bring it out, the Izula number 2. Has definitely got a lot of use and tons of carry time the last 6 months. One of my absolute favorite knives, if not my favorite. You can check out the full review on this bad boy, as well as a bunch of other videos I've got featuring the Izula 2. For now, we'll keep that over here in the middle, and I'll just start stacking knives up here, and then at the end, I'll probably end up ordering them as the least used to the best of my ability. And now to make some room, I'll take a few knives off the table that I really haven't carried or used at all. Right off the bat, the squirt I don't think has been in my pocket more than once or twice, and I mean, I don't think if I even carried it for more than a couple of hours, it was just to say that I carried it to make it feel justified to be over here. But they're handy, these little micro mini multi-tools and stuff, just to throw into a coin pocket of your jeans or something, just to have a little set of pliers on you. But it doesn't always get carried, because sometimes I just go a step up with the Victorinox Pioneer X. So no pliers, but definitely more capable of a multi-tool. So yeah, the Leatherman Squirt PS4 off the table. What else hasn't been carried at all? The Delica, I've carried it a couple times in my side cargo pocket just as a spare, just to say that I've carried it once again, but haven't really used it at all. Haven't carried it at all in my primary pocket. It's just kind of there because I traded it recently, wanted to make sure I got a handle on it, do a couple videos on it, but oh, yeah, not super good on the thumb flick there. Not my favorite knife, definitely not my preferred size of knife, and one that I can't see myself using a ton for this kind of stuff. Good for throwing into a pair of shorts or something, but we've got other knives that have gotten more pocket time for that kind of thing anyways, so no Delica. The MORA Garberg I brought out because it's the MORA Garberg. It's probably one of my favorite fixed blades, if not my ultimate, like, yeah, kind of do everything fixed blade. Ended up doing pretty well in the one knife challenge elimination process that I went through with that video. If you want to check that out, me selecting kind of the one knife if I had to limit my collection down to just one overall good for everything knife. Yeah, so the Garberg, great knife, but I ended up getting something a little bit different specifically for this job, a little bit more disposable, if you will, at about half the price. So the Garberg hasn't actually gotten, I might have carried it for a day, just again to make it feel justified to have here. So other than that, the other Garberg has gotten no use. CRKT M1603BS, don't even think I've carried it for a day. It's a great cheap, but I was gonna say cheap, but it's actually a fairly well built with decent material knife for around 70 bucks. So budget category, solid, but I've got better knives. Some that are as lighter with better capabilities, some that carry just as well, but don't quite have that cheap, bulky metal feel to it. So M16 from CRKT, not seen a lot of action yet. Other than that, I think everything on the table has seen at least some pocket time and at least cut a couple of, boxes or tape on a box or letters or whatnot. A couple of strands of paracord at least. So we'll come back and take a few more off later. For now, number 2. Second knife on the list, which is going to be no surprise, so we won't build the suspense too much. The Paramilitary 2 for Spyderco has gotten way more use the last 6 months than I ever would have expected. Not so much for the hardcore feely use. That's why I'm normally spouting the Izula 2 or something like it, so I can do some of the I guess rougher around the edges type knife stuff that you wouldn't want to do with this. As you can see, I do have a couple of dings. There's a new notch in the old Paramilitary 2's edge down there near the belly. I'm going to touch this thing up on the work sharp afterwards. But the Paramilitary 2 has been one of my most used knives for sure. Mostly in my downtime, just wearing my civilian stuff. It's super light, can be thrown into a pair of sweats or shorts, super easy, which is what I'm wearing around the barracks most of the time. So definitely one of my top 5. 2 out of 5 selected. And if you've watched the video this far, obviously you must not hate the video, so if you wouldn't mind doing me the favor of clicking that big thumbs up, that would be awesome. But yeah, second elimination, we're going to take away the knives that I've carried but haven't really used that much at all, even though I kind of carried them with the hopes of doing so. One that comes to mind right off the bat is the Tops Mil-Spy Elite. I carried this thing probably more than the Izula 2 for the most part, as I got this thing shipped here first before I even got the Izula 2 over to the base. So Mil-Spy Elite was on my side, I'd say at least 70% of the time that I've been in uniform, and I haven't used it a ton. It's been a backup fixed blade to another one that I've been carrying mostly for a work blade. This has been just one that carries super easy, super low profile. The sheath is super secure, and I've been carrying it handled down on my offhand just as a nice, accessible, easy backup fixed blade. And I ended up handing this off a couple of times to people who didn't have knives earlier on in basic training, and just handed the sheath and the knife off. So I don't know how much use they got out of it, but it came back pretty much just as sharp, just cutting a lot of braided nylon rope and paracord and such. But anyways, the Mil-Spy Elite, carried it a ton. I haven't really used it. I think it got a little bit of use, but it's been one that it's been there if I needed it. I haven't really needed it. So off it goes to the side. Hasn't been used a lot the last 6 months. Benchmade Griptilian, another one of the knives that came as part of that trade with the Spyderco Delica for my Osborne 940-2. Thanks East Coast Kid Tack for that. And this I carried for about a week or so during infantry school before I ended up getting recourse for an injury, which I mentioned a little bit in the previous video, but pulled some muscles in my back during a ruck, tried to tough it out for a few weeks, limping along, and ended up getting recourse. And here I am now on the personnel awaiting training platoon, which gives me more time to do knife video stuff and catch up on a bunch of comments, which I'll eventually sit down, take an hour or two to do, and then I should be a little more frequent on that for your knowledge and information. So the Griptilian, great knife, awesome, glad I got that in the trade. However, a little underwhelming compared to the Super Freek, which I'd gotten not that long before. So by comparison, the Freek is just a better knife, better grip, better ergonomics, better materials, better knife blade, way better blade steel. Awesome knife, better knife. But I did give the grip a try just to say that I did, and it does have its benefits. It is a little bit lighter, I think, maybe not by much, but a couple ounces. No, sorry, not a couple ounces. I think the Freek weighs in maybe somewhere around 3.2, 3.5, and the grip feels a little bit lighter than that, maybe 2.7 ounces. Don't have my scale with me, but definitely a tad lighter, a little bit thinner, a little bit thicker, but a little bit lower profile, a little bit lighter in the pocket. But it's just kind of boring, super vanilla, and the week that I carried it, for whatever reason, never found much reason to cut anything with it. Maybe I cut a piece of tape or a box or something like that, but nothing really significant, so off to the side it goes. Signal, before I got the mutt, a couple months into training, I used it a little bit. It was nice to have a multi-tool on me finally, as a lot of people didn't, so better for wildlife kind of stuff, camping, hiking, forestry, as it's got all those kind of tools and implements. So the Signal, once I got the mutt, went off to the side. Speaking of which, might as well just add the mutt in there as the third knife, because I have had this on me basically every day that I've been working. It's designed very specifically for these type of jobs, military, infantry type stuff. So the military utility tool, the mutt from Leatherman, is number 3 on the list. And back to taking a few knives off the table that I've carried but haven't really used too much. The 80-15, I've made an effort to carry a few times. I've carried it for a week here for work recently, just this last week, even though I'm just kind of messing around, looking for things to do, and spending most of my time training and getting ready for the next infantry course. But it's a little bit bulky for carrying in the work pants for doing rucks and stuff like that. But don't need the extra girth around my thighs. Already doing well enough there. And the weight at around 6 or 7 ounces definitely adds up when you're looking to shave as much weight as possible when you're doing that kind of movement in hot weather with a bunch of gear on you already. So the 8015, awesome knife, super fun to play around with, super fun to just even sit around at my desk and mess around with while I'm watching Netflix or something, but hasn't got a lot of use so far 2022. And the Manix 2, one of my absolute favorite, if not my favorite folders of all time, has been in my pocket a decent amount, carrying it again this week, carrying it a decent amount when I'm in my civvy clothes on the weekend and evenings, but just haven't found myself cutting a whole lot with it. And for the most part, I know what I can do with this thing. Very, very happy with this thing. Trying to give some of the other knives a bit of a chance. Plus, I need to get a dark pocket clip, as people have mentioned before. I've tried one. Need to try and get a better aftermarket clip for that, just to give it a little bit less shine, because that thing is super not stealthy out of my pocket when I'm in all that camouflage gear. So what do we have left here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 knives. We can take the Gerber dime off the table. Used it a little bit when I first didn't have any other knives. I purchased this at the Canex, just the convenience store at the military has set up. It was handy while I had nothing else, and just for what, $40, did everything I needed it to do. It kind of does some, well, it's fairly sturdy for how cheap it is, and when it came to scraping, or not even scraping, but doing certain things with the rifles and such that we didn't have the full-size Gerbers to do, it came in pretty handy. And you can see it's pretty scraped up and some of the paint's banged up for as little bit as I've used it. It just hasn't been used much at all after that first month. Okay, so everything else on the table I'd say has been used enough that we're going to keep it here and look at it. And we've got 6 knives on the table, only 2 of them left to make the list. One that I'm going to take out because it doesn't fit in the category of most used is the Anaconda. Probably my absolute favorite knife and kind of the gem of my collection. The Tor Anaconda gets a fair amount of carry time when I'm in civvies. I don't really carry it too much when I'm in my uniform stuff, because it kind of looks super tactical and it's a bit above my pay grade, and it's straight up just too tactical to be carrying around when I'm working, or I will get made fun of, rightfully so. So it's just a fun little fixed blade to carry on me, and I still use it quite a bit when I just have to open something when I'm sitting around the room, but it doesn't get enough field carry and use compared to the other knives to make it on the list. One knife that does make it on the list, and the fixed blade that has gotten probably more use than even the Izula 2 on these last couple of courses in the last 6 months, has been the Moracniv Kansbol, which was purchased 100% for me joining the military, and as a field knife that I didn't have to worry about losing. About $70, stainless Sandvik steel, 14C28, and I can't remember which one exactly it is. I'll have to check it out on the full, or actually the full unboxing video if you want to go scoot over and see that. That'll give you all the full specs and details, at least as far as my first impression goes with the MORA Kansbol. Kansbol's been awesome. It's cut a heck of a lot of paracord and a lot of boxes and different stuff, just odd things. This was one of the first knives, if not the very first knife that our platoon had during basic training when I got this ordered off Amazon, the very day that I found out we could finally have knives after our in-dock period. So this thing was getting passed around quite a bit, and definitely came in handy, and blends in with the gear quite well. The only thing I really have bad to say about the Kansbol, I guess it could have a little bit thicker blade, but I ordered this specifically to have the thinner blade towards the tip so I could do some slicier stuff with it, as opposed to the thicker, meatier MORAs. And the other thing I was going to say is it could have a little more finger protection like most MORAs, but if this had the MORA robust type finger protection, I'd be super, super happy with this as like an overall like super great like military knife for just about everything. But other than that, great knife, finger guard notwithstanding. So those 4 on the list right now, so we've just got to figure out number 5, then we'll do a quick little ordering of them. So definitely seen all kinds of use and pocket time with these the last 6 months. Probably more so, yeah, I guess these 3, because I've only had the Cold Steel Code 4 for the last, I guess, 3 or 4 weeks. But this thing's been in my pocket basically the entire time since I've had it. So 3 or 4 weeks, basically my full-time work folding knife as I planned for it to be, and it's gotten used a decent amount. Still pretty much razor, not quite hair, nope, still popping hairs off. S35, great edge retention, although you can see it's get a little tiny bit of, I wouldn't even call that rust, but I, again, need to try and keep these blades a little bit drier, but it's not called the Easy on Gear channel. That's why I need to try and share these good lessons with you. It's good for you, good for me, and I keep track of my stuff better because I probably never would have noticed the rust on that MORA Kansbol until that was set in, and now I know I need to set an hour aside and probably clean that before course starts because I'll get peeled out and probably chirped out for having rust on my personal gear. Just as bad as the issued stuff. But anyways, the fifth knife going on the list, not going to be the Code 4 because I haven't got to use it enough. Only had it for 3-4 weeks. The Victorinox Pioneer X, have it in my pocket all the time. Use it for some things, not always the knife, but just some of the different heads just for prying or twisting or scraping stuff. It's good as a backup, and if I ever want to hand the knife to somebody that I don't want them to ruin my knife, for example, people have asked me, hey, can I borrow your knife to cut paracord? I go to hand them the paramilitary 2, I stop, I look at how thin and flimsy the blade is. As nice as it is, it's not a knife I'm going to hand to a non-knife person, so I put that away, give them this little Swiss Army knife so they know what to do with that, and they don't have to break my nice knives. Anyways, hasn't got used as much as the other two, so that's off. Over here in the, we'll call them all honorable mentions. So we're down to the Super Freak and the LC200N version of the Pacific Salt 2 from Spyderco, both of which have gotten a fair amount of carrying. I've had recent comments that I know I've got to respond to asking about the Freak and why I haven't been carrying this as much as the other knives, being that this is one of my favorite knives now, and I did carry it a ton since I got it last August or September. I can't remember when I got this, maybe November of last year, 2020. I have no idea. Go check out the unboxing video and let me know. But the Super Freak's been awesome, just a little bit thick for the pocket, so I haven't been carrying it as much because, again, I got thick old thighs and they're filling up my combat pants enough, and I could use every bit of room to get my legs up and down as I have to ruck along the road. So it hasn't been carried as much. Therefore, the winner of the number 5 slot in this video is the Pacific Salt 2, which I had carried for quite a bit, pretty much the first month since when I got this knife shipped over to me. I had this on me pretty much, I think, the rest of basic training, through the field exercises and through a bunch of different grunt work we were doing around base. Again, cutting paracord, like folding up tarps and cleaning up stuff, and cutting large braided rope for tying down the mod tents for field exercises and stuff. So lots of use out of this. Great knife, Pacific Salt 2. Maybe not the most tactical, but it actually kind of maybe blends in a little bit with some of the... yeah, okay, a little bit too bright. A little bit too bright. But if I were to pick up, and I've thought about this, the old H1 version of the Pacific Salt 2, it's got the black handle scales. Maybe I swap those out. The blade's still a little bit shiny, but it would disappear in the pocket a lot better. Just a thought, but how about a tactical version of the waterproof LC200N Spyderco? And holy crap, look at that. I just noticed missing a body screw. I have a few random screws floating around. I wonder if that's one of them. So a bunch of rambling there, but you get the idea. LC200N, great steel. Pacific Salt 2, great knife. One of these 5 most used knives so far of 2022. And if I had to put them in order right now, of what I've used the most, the Kansbol's got probably, if not number 1 or number 2, it's definitely up there. You know, funny enough, the Pacific Salt 2 got used so much the first month, hasn't got used as much. The Kansbol got used the first month that I had it a ton because it was the only knife within our whole platoon as far as the candidates went. But I've had the paramilitary 2 on me basically all the time whenever I'm not on duty, and I think I've used it almost twice as much as a lot of these knives on the table right now. For any packages I've gotten after hours, for anything I'm cutting when I'm doing just odd stuff with paracord or tape working on my gear, or cutting off random threads or anything like that. Like a lot of that stuff's done in the evening, in the off hours, and the paramilitary 2 is normally the first thing I've got. It's also by far the sliciest knife. That the Pacific Salt 2 is up there, but the paramilitary 2 is definitely the sliciest knife that I have on me. So yeah, the paramilitary 2 I think definitely gets the number 1 slot. Number 2, Kansbol, I'd say has definitely gotten as much or more than anything else. Fixed blade wise, this has gotten a lot of the abuse. The Izula is probably going to be number 5 in this because it has gotten a lot of random jobs, a lot of twisting, prying, when we're messing around with different, I'm not going to incriminate myself too much here, but doing different things. There's a lot of different metal things that need prying and twisting, and there's tools that you have for certain stuff, and sometimes you just have to improvise. The Izula 2 is a bladed pry bar and has come in real handy for a lot of that stuff, and pretty much shown no signs of damage. And the edge, of course, 1095, even if I do ding it up, super easy to sharpen up. Just got to keep it oiled up so it doesn't rust on me, because I'm pretty bad for that. So number 5, and then I guess the battle between the Mutt and the Pacific Salt 2. That got a few weeks of use, the Pacific Salt 2, but the Mutt, since I have it, has been used frequently by myself and handed off by many people. As you can see, the carbon scraper was busted off by one of my fire team partners on basic. I've got to get a replacement kit, which you can get the whole replacement kit for the Leatherman tools. Because you can see that there's definitely been some wear on this, definitely some use, and you will break stuff eventually. There's the takedown pin, punch, and different things like that that can be unscrewed and broken and removed. But yeah, been an awesome tool. A little bit heavy. Other than that, everything I wanted it to be. So there's your order. 5 most used knives of 2022 by myself. Oh, might as well get that open so we're kind of matched up here. But not super surprised, obviously, because I've been the one carrying and using these, but a couple of the knives that I definitely like as much or more than some of the ones on the table didn't make the cut just because they're not as practical for doing this type of stuff. However, still carrying them once in a while just because I do enjoy them. And once I get into more of a normal routine and not around such a, I guess, an environment where I'm prying and twisting with my personal knives as much, maybe I'll get some issued tools and I'll be able to beat those up a little bit more and save some of my blades on some of that metal on metal rubbing. But let me know if there's a knife on the table that you thought was going to be on this list that didn't make the top 5. And again, if there's a knife that you feel like you'd be using more, let me know in the comments, as well as what you would be using personally as your, or what you've used the most, I guess, in the last 6 months for your personal most used knives of 2022. That it pretty much is it for this one. Again, if you haven't clicked the like button yet, that is one of the best ways to help the channel out, by getting this video up to more knife people. Keep an eye out for what's going to be the first knife giveaway of the channel coming up soon. Probably one of the knives on the table here is going to be involved in that giveaway. Not this knife, but I'll be ordering a new one just for you whenever we get that figured out, once I'm not a poor broke-ass private and I get trained and get off to actual posting here. So keep an eye out for that and everything else coming up on the Hog channel. I've got lots of time now to work on content, so that shouldn't be much of an issue. Thanks for watching and tuning into this one. This is the Hard On Gear channel, signing off.